Hi friends, welcome to English Study Point. Today in this video lecture, I am going to discuss background of dark romanticism. Dark romanticism is also attributed as Gothic romanticism, which was a literary movement which was flourished until the mid 1800s and actually emerged in the 19th century. It was seen as a response to the optimistic and transcendental ideas of the preceding romantic movement. So it was started as a reaction to transcendentalism, which was positive and optimistic. It delved into the sinister. Sinister means terrible or fearful, and macabre aspects of human nature. Macabre means bhayankar. Dark Romanticism was characterized by its exploration of the darker and more negative aspects of human existence. So, in this line, we see that here in Dark Romanticism, there is a fascination for death, describing about elements related to death and supernatural, and also rejection of societal norms and conventions in such types of writings. Dark Romanticism was a preoccupation with death and macabre. Dark Romantic writers were intrigued by the decay and inevitable mortality of human beings. They often use vivid and descriptive languages to explore these themes in their works. So here we see that these type of writers or writers writing during a dark romantic era, they used to depict scenes related to death, decay and decomposition to highlight the transitory nature of life and inevitability of death. And a good example of which resemble these lines can be Edgar Allan Poe's work, The Fall of the House of Usher. In this work, there is a kind of representation of decaying mansion, which serves as a metaphor for the decay and impending death of the Usher family. There is exploration of the human psyche, particularly the darker and more forbidden aspects of the subconscious mind. So, dark romantic writers delve into the themes of madness and psychological disorder, portraying characters who were haunted by their own troubled thoughts and delusions. Another example which resembles this feature can be Nathaniel Hawthorne's work, The Minister's Black Veil, which is considered to be an excellent example. Here in this work, there is presence of a main character who wears a veil to symbolize his hidden sins and inner guilt, which suggests the inherent darkness present within the human soul. The supernatural and the mysterious were also prominent elements of dark romanticism. So, writers writing during this era often incorporated supernatural elements such as ghosts, monsters, and fantastical occurrences into their works. They use these elements to create an atmosphere of mystery and suspense. Example of this can be like in Washington Irving's work, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, there is presence of supernatural figure of the headless horseman. And this particular thing or presence of headless horsemen adds an air and otherworldly element to the story, heightening the sense of fear and suspense more deeply in the story for the readers. In dark romantic writings, there is a kind of strong aversion to society and its conventions. So, dark romantic writers they portray society as corrupt, suffocating, and restrictive, and also by telling about all these things or brutal truths of the society, these writers tend to highlight limitations and hypocrisies that is present within this civilization. They also criticize the conformity of people with this society, with the ideas of this society, and also materialism that people is tending to follow in this society. And by telling all these things, they used to explore darker sides of human nature that that seem to be suppressed by societal norms. An example of this feature can be Herman Melville's work Bartleby the Scrivener. Here, the protagonist Bartleby represents as a non-conformist who refuses to engage in the society of his time by not following ideas of the society. He, in a way, challenging societal conventions and expectations. Dark Romanticism was also characterized by a sense of rebellion against traditional religious beliefs and an embrace of dark and occult themes. So, here, dark romantic writers rejected conventional religious teachings, questioning the existence of a benevolent God and exploring concepts such as sin, guilt, and the supernatural. They, by talking about all these things in their works, they do address themes related to the occult, witchcraft, and other taboo subjects to challenge societal and religious norms. And example of this can be Nathaniel Hawthorne's work Young Goodman Brown. Here the protagonist becomes disillusioned with his society's hypocrisy after witnessing a witch coven in the woods, highlighting his rejection of traditional religious beliefs. Dark romantic writers make presence of such kinds of settings in their works that it will automatically create a distinctive atmosphere. So here they are utilizing detailed and evocative descriptions to evoke a sense of dread and foreboding. They also use gothic elements such as crumbling castles, dark forests, haunted mansions, which create a visually striking backdrop for their stories. Example of this can be Edgar Allan Poe's work The Mask of the Red Death. This type of work there is presence of elaborate kind of descriptions of the rooms in the castle, which is considered to be a prime example which resembles such kinds of feature. There is also an exploration of the human capacity for performing evil and also describes moral ambiguity which is present within human actions. So, dark romantic writers question the notion of innate human goodness and also explore the darker and more sinister aspects of human nature. Characters in dark romantic works acted in morally ambiguous ways. They, in a way, struggle with inner conflicts between good and evil. Example of this can be Mary Shelley's work Frankenstein. There is a titular character whose name is Victor Frankenstein who creates a monster which ultimately results in tragic consequences, which highlights the moral complexity of his actions. There is presence of theme of isolation and alienation which was prevalent throughout the dark romantic literature or works. Protagonists were often portrayed as outsiders. They are misunderstood and rejected by society. They often feel a sense of loneliness and disconnectedness from others, which further enhance the dark and melancholic tone of the works. Example of this can be Edgar Allan Poe's work, or this is a poetry by Edgar Allan Poe titled as The Raven. In this poetry, there is a reflection of narrator's despair and isolation, which are enhanced by the presence of titular bird, which represents a constant reminder of his loneliness and mourning. There is a fascination with the sublime and the irrational. What these writers, dark romantic writers, do is that they sought to elicit feelings of awe and terror in their readers by depicting vast and overwhelming landscapes or exploring the irrational and abnormal through their characters. By doing all this thing, their aim is to evoke powerful emotional responses from their readers to challenge their sense of reason and rationality. Example can be Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay Nature. In this essay, he explores the concept of sublime, which emphasizes the overwhelming power and beauty of the natural world. Guilt and sin were recurring themes in dark romantic literature. The character in these works often struggle with guilt for their past actions or sins committed, leading to intense psychological distress. Here, dark romantic writers, by depicting plight of characters, they also depict internal conflict which frequently led characters down to darker paths as they sought redemption or salvation for their transgressions. Example can be in Nathaniel Hawthorne's work, The Scarlet Letter, there is a main character, Heston Prynne, who wears a scarlet letter title as A, which serves as a this mark serves as a punishment for her adultery, which symbolize her sin and guilt. The motive of duality was also prevalent in dark romanticism. Many works explore the idea of the human psyche being split into two opposing forces, often representing the struggle between good and evil. But writers, dark romantic writers, by depicting this duality, they too want to suggest to the readers that such kinds of duality was also reflected in the real physical world with contrasting settings, characters, or situations that emphasize the coexistence of contrasting elements. Example can be in Robert Louis Stevenson's work titled as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The main character who is present in this work, he possess a kind of or he have a split identity which represents the duality of human nature and the inherent capacity for both good and evil within him. The theme of madness and obsession was a recurring element in dark romantic literature. Many works feature characters who were driven to madness or obsessed with a particular idea, often to the point of self destruction. This preoccupation with madness and obsession serves to highlight irrational and uncontrollable aspects that is within human nature. Like, for example, in Charlotte Perkins Gilman's short story titled as The Yellow Wallpaper, there is a main female character, who is turning to be on the verge of madness just because of her confinement and isolation. She is trapped in the walls of surrounding yellow wallpaper, which leads her to turn to madness. Dark romanticism often places a heavy emphasis on the power of imagination and the ability of human mind to conjure up dark and often terrifying imagery. Here, dark romantic writers, they do this or they do all these things to awaken the reader's imagination and provoke a visceral response through the use of depiction of vivid and grotesque descriptions. Example can be Edgar Allan Poe's work The Telltale's Heart. Here, protagonists disturb imagination, transforms an innocent old man's eye into a symbol of evil and drives him to commit murder. In such types of works, there is a sense of the fantastic and the uncanny present in dark romantic literature. So, writers who used to write in this era, they often blur the lines between reality and dream, exploring the boundaries of what is perceived as normal and reasonable. This allowed them to create a sense of unease and uncertainty in their readers, heightening the overall atmosphere of mystery and suspense. Example can be Nathaniel Hawthorne's work, The Birthmark, where there is a protagonist who becomes obsessed with removing a small mark on his wife's cheek, and It by doing this thing, it tries to automatically blur the lines between scientific advancement and unnatural tampering with nature. Here I am winding this video lecture by giving a conclusion that this dark romanticism was a kind of literary movement that explored the darker and more negative aspects of human existence, and also in such types of writings there is preoccupation with death and the macabre elements, and also an exploration of the human psyche and a fascination with the supernatural and the mysterious things. And in such types of writings there is rejection of societal norms and convention. This can be seen with the help of characters, and also there is an aversion to traditional religious beliefs, and they tend to embrace dark and occult themes. Also, they use atmospheric settings intentionally and question the notion of innate human goodness. Also, depict characters in isolation and alienation, and they to explore the sublime and the traditional. And by doing all these things, they address themes of guilt and sin, and portray duality and utilize symbolism and allegory. This movement of dark romanticism depict madness and obsession, which emphasize the power of imagination and blur the lines between reality and fantasy. Then with this video lecture ends here. Hope this video lecture will help you in your UGC NET English Literature exams. Thank you.